Today, we are gonna talk about physics which focus on kinematics. But wait, what does kinematics mean? Me and Michaela will teach you about it.
Kinematics is a branch of classical mechanics that describes the motion of points, objects, and groups of objects without considering the forces that cause the motion.
It is also a field of study, often referred to as the geometry of motion, and is occasionally seen as the branch of mathematics. It is also used in astrophysics to describe the motion of celestial bodies and collections of such bodies.
The term kinematic is the English version of AM, meaning ampere cinematique, which he constructed from the Greek word kinema, meaning movement or motion, itself derived from the kinein, meaning to move.
Now that you know the definition of kinematics, let us talk about the difference between scalar and vector quantity. A vector has more than one number associated with it. A simple example is velocity. It has a magnitude called speed, as well as a direction, like north or southwest, or 10 degrees west of north. You can have more than two numbers associated with a vector.
Scalar quantity refers to the quantity which has only magnitude and no direction. On the other hand, vector quantity implies the physical quantity which comprises of both magnitude and direction. Here's the key differences. The scalar quantity is described as the quantity that has only one characteristic. Example, magnitude. The vector quantity is a physical quantity which needs both magnitude and direction to define it.
Scalar quantities explain one-dimensional quantities. On the other hand, multi-dimensional quantities are explained by vector quantity. Scalar quantity changes only when there is a change in their magnitude. As against this, vector quantity changes with the change in their magnitude, direction, or both.
When comparing two scalar quantities, you have to consider only the magnitude, whereas when the comparison of two vector quantities is made, both magnitude and direction are to be taken into account. In this way, vector quantities are a bit more difficult to deal as compared to scalar quantity. Last but not the least, scalar quantity can divide in another scalar, but this cannot be done in the case of a vector quantity.
Let's move on to the next topic, which is the difference between distance and displacement. Distance is the total length of the path covered from one location to another. Distance cannot be negative and never decreases. Distance is a scalar quantity or a magnitude, while displacement is a vector whose length is the shortest distance from the initial to the final position of the point. It quantifies both the distance and direction of an imaginary motion along a straight line from the initial position to the final position of the point. Displacement can be positive, negative, or zero. This is an example picture of the difference between distance and displacement. As you can see, the displacement has shorter length than the distance. The displacement starts from the initial position to the final position, which is the point A to point B.
This time, let us discuss about average speed and average velocity with computation. Average speed is the distance traveled by any moving object per unit time. The formula in getting the average speed is total distance over total time. The unit of average speed is determined by the units of the distance and time. For example, kilometer per hour or miles per hour.
Let's answer one question. What is the average speed of a car that travels 78 kilometers in 45 minutes? So first, list down all the given factors. So the missing factor is the average speed. Next, write the formula. You can refer to the formula triangle as shown a while ago. Then write the solution. So 78 kilometers divided by 45 minutes. Then answer will be 1.73 kilometers per minute. Average velocity describes only the total distance covered per unit time. It is defined as the total displacement of the object divided by the elapsed time. The final answer is expressed with direction since the value is for average velocity, which velocity is a vector quantity. For example, 50 kilometers per hour is.
Answer 1 question. Find the average velocity of a vehicle that is traveling at 100 kilometers east in 2 hours. So first, list down all the given factors. Don't forget to include direction. So the missing factor is the average velocity. Next, write the formula. You can refer to the formula triangle as shown a while ago. Then write the solution to 100 kilometers east divided by 2 hours. Then the answer will be 50 kilometers per hour east. Let us now move on to the discussion of acceleration with computation.
Acceleration is the rate of change in velocity, and it is a vector quantity that has a magnitude and direction. When an object speeds up, there is a change in velocity and that object is considered accelerating. Positive acceleration signifies increasing speed, while negative direction is moving to opposite direction.
An object is accelerating if there is a change in speed, whether increasing or decreasing, a change in direction, or a change in both speed and direction.
In computation, the formula in getting the acceleration is first get the final velocity, then subtract it with the initial velocity, then divide it with the difference of final time and initial time. The unit for acceleration is meter per second squared.
Discuss about position versus time graph.
In answering this, you have to get the total distance. In order to get the total distance, you have to get the length of these lines in each letter in this graph, then add them all together. Then you will have your total distance of 140 meters. Next, you have to get the total. Get the final position, which is 100 meters, then subtract it with initial position, which is 0 meters. Then you will have the total displacement of 100 meters. Next is the table. You have to get the time interval of these letters by getting the time occupied. For example, for letter A, the time interval is 0 to 10 seconds. Then get the velocity by getting the rise and run in order to get the velocity. For example, for letter A, the distance is 60 meters, which is the rise, and the time interval is 10 seconds, which is the run. So divide the rise by the run, the velocity is 6 meters per second. Do this for the rest of the letters to complete the table. The last step is velocity versus time graph. We use the data of velocity at the table shown a while ago. So letter A is 6 meters per second, letter B is 0 meters per second, letter C is 0.44 meter per second, and letter D is 4 meters per second. Let us now discuss our last topic, which is velocity versus time graph. In answering this, you have to divide the graph by shapes. So use these formulas in getting the displacement. For example, for letter A, the formula used is base times height divided by 2. So 5 times 10 then divided by 2 equals to 25 meters. For letter B, the formula used is length times width. So 10 times 10 will be 100 meters. For letter C, the formula used is base times height divided by 2. So, 10 times 5 divided by 2 equals to 25 meters. For letter D, the formula used is length times width. So, 5 times 10 equals to 50 meters. Then add all of these answers and the answer will be 200 meters, which is your total displacement. Next is the table. You have to get the time intervals of these letters by getting the time occupied. For example, for letter A, the time interval is 0 to 5 seconds. Then get the acceleration by getting the rise and run. For example, for letter A, the rise is 10 meters per second and the time interval is 5 seconds, which is the run. So divide the rise by the run. The acceleration is 2 meters per second squared. Do this for the rest of the letters to complete the table. The last step is acceleration versus time graph. We use the data of acceleration at the table shown a while ago. So letter A is 2 meters per second squared, letter B is 1 meter per second squared, letter C is 0.5 meter per second squared, and letter D is 0.5 meter per second squared. This is the end of our tutorial video. Thanks for watching.